He walked into the academy barefoot, wearing his only shirt patched, faded, and soaked in sweat. They laughed at him, called him bush boy, said a poor village orphan could never become a real soldier. But they didn't know he wasn't chasing medals. He was chasing his father's last words. This is the true African tale of a boy they mocked for having nothing, who rose through fire, war, and humiliation to become the most decorated military officer in the entire continent. If you believe in rising above hate, then this story will break your heart and rebuild it. Subscribe now to Real African Tales by Ha for more powerful African stories, and tell us in the comments, which part of Africa are you watching from? They first noticed him on recruitment day, not because of strength, but because of his poverty. A dark-skinned, sharp-jawed boy with braided hair, no shoes, and eyes that refused to blink under the sun. His name was Zuberi, born in a remote, hilltop village where goats outnumbered people, and where the last school closed when the roof fell in. His mother died giving birth to his younger sister, and his father, once a respected soldier, had disappeared during a failed peacekeeping mission in another country, never to return. With no land, no family name, and no protection, Zuberi grew up carrying water in one hand and pain in the other. He trained himself using tree branches as rifles, ran up hills with rocks tied to his back, and listened to old soldiers tell war stories near bushfires. When recruitment opened at the district barracks, Zuberi walked 19 kilometers barefoot, carrying only a banana and his father's faded photo in his pocket. The other recruits came in taxis, polished boots shining, family members cheering, but Zuberi walked in silence, his ankles covered in dust. The other boys laughed when they saw him. One even tossed a water bottle at his feet and said, "Drink, bush dog." But Zuberi said nothing. During the fitness test, he outran everyone. During the push-ups, he did more than required and kept going. The drill sergeant took notice. "Where'd you learn that?" he asked. Zuberi simply replied, "In hunger, sir." That day he was selected. In the academy, things didn't get easier. Recruits sabotaged his bunk, mocked his clothes, and called him names like orphan rat. But Zuberi never missed a single drill. When others collapsed in training, he kept moving. When food was scarce, he split his ration with weaker cadets. Slowly, respect began to grow. Then came the day of the live fire exercise, a brutal test designed to weed out the unworthy. One recruit froze in panic as explosions erupted nearby, but Zuberi ran into the fire, carried the boy on his back through barbed wire, and finished the course. That act made him a legend. He graduated top of his class and was immediately sent to a volatile northern region where rebels had ambushed civilian convoys. His first mission? Escort medical supplies through dangerous territory. The convoy was attacked. Zuberi, only 20, led the counterattack using just a handful of soldiers and clever flanking tactics, saving 47 lives. His name hit the national news. Young officer defends convoy with no losses. Over the next years, he became known as the Ghost Shield, always protecting, always surviving, earning medals in Nigeria, Ghana, DR, Congo, and beyond. He refused bribes, refused promotion through politics, and only rose through battle. He lost 3 fingers saving a hostage child. He once walked 5 days alone through jungle to call for air support after his team was pinned down. When asked why he never quit, he showed them his father's photo and said, "He never came home, but I will." At 29, he became a colonel. At 31, he led the international counter-terror mission that dismantled one of the deadliest cells in Central Africa. At 33, he stood on stage as the President of the Republic, pinned the Star of Valor, Medal of Service, and the Continental Unity Cross on his chest. No officer in African history had ever worn all 3. Cameras flashed. His former academy mates, some who once called him Bush Boy, now saluted him with trembling hands. When reporters asked what he wanted next, he simply said, "I want to build schools where boys like me don't have to choose between hunger and war." That very week, he launched the Zuberi Foundation, funding education for orphans in every conflict zone he had served in. But his greatest test was still ahead, a secret betrayal from within his own ranks. By men who envied his rise, Zuberi's rise through the ranks was like a flame in the night, admired by many but feared by the shadows. Behind the polished medals and news headlines were men in tailored suits and stained uniforms who had built empires on stolen rations, false reports, and fake soldier salaries. To them, Zuberi was not just a hero, he was a threat. He spoke openly about reform, visited war, widows without cameras, and turned down luxury in favor of building rural barracks with clean water and working boots. He refused to take a house in the capital, instead sleeping in base camps among the lowest soldiers, eating their same stew, bathing with cold water. When he was named Director of Military Operations at just 35, the conspiracies began. One night, during a mission to mediate tribal conflict at the western border, his helicopter crashed under mysterious circumstances. The report claimed mechanical failure, but Zuberi had survived, barely pulled from the wreck by a nomadic herder and hidden for weeks in a straw hut while enemies in uniform quietly celebrated his death. During that time, he saw everything from afar. Military supplies diverted, orphan aid blocked, his name removed from command lists, but Zuberi didn't stay silent. With the help of loyal officers and villagers, he released a broadcast across local radio stations, revealing he was alive and exposing classified documents proving internal sabotage, stolen funds, and fake combat operations. The country exploded with rage. Soldiers marched in protest. War widows stormed city halls. The people rallied under one cry: Zuberi lives, and so will truth. The president ordered a full tribunal. Corrupt generals were arrested, including 2 of the very men who once laughed when he arrived barefoot to the academy. During the tribunal, one of them, an aging general with gold on every finger, stared at Zuberi across the courtroom and said, "You think you changed anything?" Zuberi calmly replied, "I didn't come to change everything just to make it impossible to lie in uniform again." When the court ruled in his favor, and the medals he'd earned were restored in full, Zuberi made no victory speech. Instead, he knelt at his father's empty grave, placed his own medal atop the stone, and whispered, "For all the battles you never got to finish." What followed was a national transformation. Zuberi became commander of peacekeeping forces across East Africa, led negotiations that disarmed 3 rebel groups without bloodshed, and built over 40 military-run community schools for children displaced by war. His story was added to the official training manual of the National Defense Forces. Murals of his face appeared in cities and towns, always showing him not with guns, but with books, bandages, and outstretched hands. At 40, he was awarded the Continental Shield of Unity, the highest honor ever granted to a living African officer. During the ceremony, held in a stadium with 80,000 people, he wore the same shirt he had worn when he first entered the academy, now stitched, mended, and preserved as a national artifact. When asked what still kept him going, he said, "I came from nothing, but nothing built my strength. If they hadn't mocked me, I'd never have risen, so I thank them. They trained me harder than any general ever could." Today, schools across Africa teach Zuberi's story, not just as history, but as a warning and a promise. A warning that mocking the poor only awakens giants. And a promise that no matter how far you fall, honor can carry you home. From barefoot boy to the most decorated officer in Africa, Zuberi proved that legacy isn't bought, it's built, one scar at a time.